Final round at the Norway Chess, and Vishy Anand was up against Norwegian number 2 Aryan Tari. Let's have a look at the games. First of all, the classical game and then the Armageddon. Vishy was playing with the black pieces and Aryan opens the game with 1 e4. Now, before the game starts, the tournament situation was something like this where Anand was in a must win if he had to have any chances of fighting for the top spot. So that was kind of what brought out his opening choice: knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4 was played in the Armageddon, bishop b5 in the classical game, a6, bishop a4, the Ruy Lopez on the board, knight f6, castles, and Vishy goes for the open Ruy Lopez, d4, b5, bishop b3, d5, d takes e5, bishop e6, all standard stuff, c3, and now bishop e7. The more popular move or more played is bishop c5, but Anand goes for bishop e7, bishop c2, and now he plays his bishop to g4. According to the modern engines, this is the most accurate move. And now Aryan plays a move that has been played twice by MVL in this position. He goes for the move queen e1. MVL played it with Mamedyarov and also against Anish Giri. In this position, most of the top like both the games continued with knight to c5. Like one of the games, MVL Giri continued knight c5, and the other one continued with castles. But no one had ventured into taking on f3. No top player. In fact, this was the game between Ravi Harya and Giriya Olga. And taking this is quite dangerous because after g takes f3, you are mangling up the pawn structure. But on the other hand, your knight is not very safe. Like, where does it go? Also, the pawns are coming down the board with f4, f5. A possibility was queen d7 here to play this way. But Anand went knight c5, and here Aryan thought for a lot of time, nearly 35 minutes. And then he played the best move in the position, which was b4. It was very well done. And here Giriya Olga had gone wrong with knight e6. And after f4, Ravi Harya with white had clearly better position with f5 coming up. The knight is not well placed on e6. So knight a4 is the correct move and Vishy Anand plays it. Now we have a fresh position here. f4 played on the board. Queen d7 trying to fight against f5. Let's say, for example, if you go f5, then already something like g6 with the idea of long castling can become very interesting. You can't play f6 because of check, and it's a perpetual. So queen e2 was played in this position, and here is where Vishy showed his pragmatic self. Black to play, what would you do? So for many players, the tournament situation dictates what they want to play, and many times that is the case. But Anand has seen enough events to see that if the position doesn't warrant going all out, then you have to play it very objectively. The position is the most important, not the tournament situation many times. Yeah, like maybe if it was the candidates or world championship, he would have gone on. But here in Norway Chess, it is just another tournament. So he goes knight takes c3, knight takes c3, knight d4, attacking the queen as well as the bishop. Queen d1 takes on c2, queen c2, and in comes the queen with a check. And there's no way to kind of further attack the white king, so the players agreed to a draw here. So very interesting decision by Vishy here to draw the game. I was a little bit surprised that he did not fight more for a win, but also I kind of start to understand why he would have done that. He's much more he's seen much more tournaments, has much more experience than most of the players, and I think his decision was correct. Bishop c4 played in the Armageddon game. Now Vishy had black pieces, 7 minutes. Aryan has 10 minutes. Draw is okay for black. White is in a must win. Vishy goes bishop c5, d3, knight f6, knight c3 by Aryan. Not the most popular way to play. A6 is generally played so as that you can, after knight a4, protect your bishop. But he went d6, h3, h6, and the bishop was given up on b6, which was okay with Vishy. He exchanges the other bishop so that white is not left with the bishop pair. Takes, castles, b4, queen e8, c3 was played, knight to h5, knight b6, a b6, bishop e3, the knight came to f4. Well, black has some attacking chances here. Maybe Aryan could have taken. I think he'll take with the rook and played this position. It was possible to go here, but he went king h2. Vishy put his queen on h5, now threatening all sorts of things like knight h3. So knight g1, took on d1, rook d1, and I liked Anand's next move, which was rook a4. So he is just trying to attack this, bring the other rook here. Aryan instantly addresses it, goes bishop c1. And I want you to think for a bit on this move, because the next move I really like. What should black play here? So one way to do is b5, and I'm fixing the position. That is completely playable. The other way is rook a8. Again, playable move. But the move that I like the most and is very interesting is knight a7, because I'm putting my knight on b5 to keep pressure on these 2 points. And if you were to play c4, then the d4 square is weakened and I can bring my knight back and put my knight here. So knight a7, rook b1, knight to b5 and rook a8. And here, well, the engine says after knight a3, b5, black is still not better even after winning the pawn, because the knight is a little bit trapped over there. But still, this entire concept of putting the knight on a7 and then on b5 just shows how you can identify weaknesses and then gang up on it. Okay, knight h5 was played, and slowly Aryan Tari started to take over. Like bishop b2, he took exchanged here. C4 takes 5, rook c1, threatening to play c5, b6. He anyway goes c5, takes b5, and now puts his rook here to attack this pawn. Vishy could have played this rook here so that after rook d7 he has rook f7, but he went rook e8, and after rook d7 it started to become slightly uncomfortable. Rook a7, rook d1, king f8. Anand played this phase of the game well, offering a trade of rooks. King e8, rook went back, and now came rook a4. Okay, you could also go king f7. It was possible, but okay, rook a4, king g4, and now g6 was played. h5, takes, king takes. I think this is the key moment from where Vishy started to lose the thread a bit. He could have played king f7, and I think black is doing very well. The main point is that if you take here after king f6, the rook is coming back, and actually it's a mating net over here. So black is winning. You can't take the pawn, and also slowly you can start using the g file to attack the g2 pawn. But Anand played b4, takes, and now a nice maneuver by Aryan, which is bishop to c3. Excellent move. Anand played rook c4. This was a mistake because rook a4 was better. The point being that after bishop e1, rook a2, bishop h4, you can put your rook on g7, and black is still fighting here. In the game, what happened is that after rook c4, bishop e1, the bishop is coming out from there. Now if you went rook c2, bishop e1, rook g7, this leads to a lost position after the very strong move rook a1, and the rook is entering here. So having the rook on a2 was a big benefit for black. But anyway, all of this to figure out in a blitz game, like with few minutes on the clock, is not easy. Vishy goes rook d4, and now white to play. What would you do here? Aryan finds this excellent move, rook a1. And this is the winning move here. After rook d7, it's your move. What do you play here for white? Yeah, rook a8 check is the winning move, because now you must go king f7, and then after take, and rook a6, h6 pawn is falling, e5 pawn is weak, and white will be able to convert this with a clear advantage. Went rook d7, and after take king d7, black was back again in the game because this king is very well positioned here. King takes rook c4. You can see that Vishy now, in his typical style of active defense, is able to hold this draw. En passant, knight to d3, takes the pawn on c5. And here he takes on e5, but Vishy had it covered. Now rook a5, f4, he takes, and he realizes that this position is just a draw. So now learn this technique. You don't need to cling on to your c pawn. Just play rook a6 like Philidor, 6th rank cutoff, and then after rook c7, just rook h6 and wait on the 6th rank. Here take the pawn, check, king here. I mean, in order to make progress, he would anyway have to do that. If he went e6 here in this position, you can already go rook a1 with the idea of giving a check if king f6. So, I mean, the king still has a shelter here, but it doesn't help in any way. Like whenever you go to f6, I'll give you a check. So king f6, he took the pawn, rook b8 check, king d7, rook e1. It's important to keep the pawn behind, rook behind, so that e6 never comes. I can take it. King e6, and now I think Anand should have gone to the short side. It's easier. King f8, so that, I mean, if check here, this, he has the long side to give checks, or maybe he can just wait. And then king d6, there is king f7. This is a typical way to draw. But he went to the long side, check, king c7. Maybe rook e8 was possible as a way, but I mean, rook h1 is good enough for a draw. That's the only move here to draw. King f6, king d7, check, king here, king f8. And finally, Anand goes to the short side. And once again, rook a1 is an important move. Taking the long side, checking here, keeping the rooks. And now again, Anand shows good technique. He goes king g6 here. Rook b8 loses because now you have not enough checking distance. I go rook d2, check, king d8, threatening e7, king f6, e7, check, 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 and you win. So the main problem here was that if your rook was on the a file, I could have given one more check. But here if I give a check, then after king to c7, it is white who wins here. Let's say if you go here, I go king d8, and next move queen. If you take the pawn, it's a check. Anyway, Anand knew these things, so he was very confident, and in fact, he moved so quickly that in the end, Aryan Tari, in fact, lost on time here. But anyway, the position is drawn, and he would have lost because a draw is okay for black. So with this, the Norway chess comes to an end. A fantastic tournament. In the end, there was all sorts of action because Magnus Carlsen was held to a draw by Topalov. He did beat him in the Armageddon, but if Mamedyarov, who had a better position against Radjabov, had won, he would have become the champion. But Radjabov held his own. He not only defended the classical game, he also defended his Armageddon game. And in the end, Mamedyarov had to settle for the second spot. Once again, it is Magnus Carlsen who has become the champion with 16 and a half, Mamedyarov with 15 and a half, but Vishy Anand with 14 and a half, and a fantastic performance beating Carlsen. MVL. I mean, in their matches, he won classical games against Topalov and MVL, right? But beating in Armageddon, he bet Carlsen, Kiri, Wang Hao, Aryan Tari, and that was just amazing how many players he managed to beat. Also Rajabov. So a great event for Vishy. Maybe I can just show you a couple of pictures from this event. There were some, I think one particular picture of Magnus was very nice. Let me just see if I can pull it up here. It was this typical Magnus smile here. Yeah, there you go. Magnus Carlsen smiling after winning yet another title. But this one was not easy and he knew it. But congratulations to the champ and also to Vishy Anand for such a phenomenal performance at the age of 52. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Hope you enjoyed our coverage. Bye bye.